Hi, this is David Orlofsky, and welcome to the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And whether you're watching on Torah Anytime or wherever you watch or listen to your podcast, I understand that our listening audience, as opposed to our watching audience, is growing faster. So if you're listening, anyway, it's really very exciting to have you along for this exciting journey. 1.5 years we're doing this already. It's already Shabbos Mevarchin. And this past Shabbos, it's Rosh Chodesh Adar is right around the corner. And as we know, Mishen Nichnas Adar, Mabim B'Simcha. The Simcha continues to grow and grow. So, Baruch Hashem, one of the greatest sources of Simcha is the fact that I get to have this time to spend it with you. And I hope you enjoy spending the time with me. And we're a happy family. I feel like I heard that line someplace. And we have a sponsor this week. It's jewishpodcast.org. That's with an S at the end. Jewishpodcasts.org. They help you create your very own podcast. I know it looks like this is extremely complicated, but that's because you don't have any help. And trust me, you need help. But why shouldn't you also have an opportunity to be able to share your thoughts with the wider audience? My son just started a podcast in Hebrew. I wish I understood what he was talking about. But אני רק הייתי פה בארץ 32 שנים, ולא קיבלתי את האפשרות לדבר בעברית טוב מאוד כל כך. Anyway, but they will help you. They'll put your podcast on platforms like Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcast, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, and more. There's also an option to be able to broadcast this out into outer space to try to see if there's intelligent life. But I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Jewish Podcast also helps with the graphic design for your podcast cover, art, and assists with marketing strategy to help grow your podcast. Jewish Podcast hosts over 30 popular Jewish podcasts, including the Yeshiva World Podcast, Tourist Avigdor, the Shmooze, Ask Rabbi Avigdor Miller podcast, and it's coming soon, the Rabbi Barrel Wine podcast, just to name a few. You can browse the full show list on their website at jewishpodcasts.org. To learn more about starting your own show, visit jewishpodcast.org or call 410-596-1028. That's 410-596-1028 to get a free consultation today. And as somebody who used to come to my shiurim on Motzi Shabbos used to say, I love listening to your shiurim because you're so ordinary, and I feel like if you could do it, anyone can. And that is the theme of the show. And so why shouldn't you have your own podcast? I'm sure you have thoughts that you'd like to be able to share with the general public. Please contact jewishpodcast.org. And we have a special treat this week because I have on a noted Talmid Chacham and author. Now, why do I have this special guest this week? Well, I sort of gave it away at the beginning because it's almost Purim. Misha, 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 Nichnas Adar. Did you ever notice that almost all the Purim songs are incredibly annoying? V'gam, 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 Charavona. Anyway, you get the idea. So I have with me Rabbi Avi Lieberman, the author of Purim, Now and Forever. And if you will note, forward by Rabbi Dovid Orlofsky. That's why you're on the podcast this week. That's actually more input than I put into the book that actually has my name on it. And I have with me the author of this important work on Purim, Rabbi Avi Lieberman. Avi, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Avi is originally from Queens and has been a Sholem Meshiv in the Mir, and is now working in Yeshiva Torah Chaim, and wrote a book on Purim.
Yes.
This is not the first thing you've written.
It's the first piece I published, but it's not the first thing I've written.
What have you written?
I've been writing for many years. I've been writing articles, been writing a little contrasim, the same type of topic, like to inspire through writing. It's always been a mode. While I've been yeshiva, learning and teaching, it's always been a...
So you've been doing this, you're not making any money off of this, you're just doing it basically to be able to spread Torah.
Yes, that's
stupid. Anyway, I always do when they read my biography, it's going to be called All for the Bucks. But anyway...
I've been writing for many years, but finally a few people said it's time to publish a book. And the way someone put it, he said, you write some contrast and put out some pages. It's very nice, but reach Klal Yisrael. You publish, it can get out, you can inspire more people.
I came close to publishing a book. I actually wrote a book. I wrote one book, I finished it, I never put it out. It was called The Last Book You Read Before You Assimilate. And it's a book for Jews who aren't interested in reading a book about Judaism. I used to teach in Discovery, and people say I have a relative or a friend who's not that interested. So I wrote that book, but I never published it because I found publishing to be quite daunting. So you decided to write a book on Purim now and forever. Now, I assume if you go into the average Svarim store today, there are many books on Purim that are available. What inspired you to write this one?
So it's true, there are many books on Purim. There are books on explaining the Megillah, explaining Agadata and Halacha. I really, my mode of writing throughout life has really always been to inspire. And Purim is, in a way, out of all the Yom Tovim, all the topics that you can write on, it's something that we need to bring out the inspiration, I think.
Why? Why more than any other holiday?
Because two reasons. One reason is because the day of Purim itself is very short, and you're very busy. Very busy with a lot of things, and you need the more Svarim to prepare yourself beforehand, the better.
I'll tell you an interesting story. I once asked Rabbi Shapiro, I used to go to him on Purim, and I asked him once about, they have these Yeshiva Mordechai Yehudi, where in the middle of Purim, with everything going on, to make a Seder. Sit down, learn with your son, whatever it is to have learning. And I asked Moshe Shapiro about this, and he said, Zeloha Avoda Hayom. That's not what Purim is about, interestingly enough. And then he looked at me and he says, there is an inyan to learn Torah at the Purim Suda, but that's a chelik of the Suda. But as far as taking out time in the middle of learning it, which means that, you ever see these people where they try to daven with these, I don't even know the names of all the books, that have this running commentary? You seen this? And so they daven like this. And you're just reading, it's impossible. You have to do the preparation before you get ready to daven. So obviously you have to prepare for Purim before Purim.
Right,
You can't wake up.
So Hanukkah, you have 8 days. You can learn before, you can learn during. Sukkot, Pesach, Yom Noraim, you beforehand and during, obviously.
It's ironic because Hanukkah is Chag HaTorah, and people make parties then. But that's not really the purpose of Hanukkah, as the Mishnah Berurah says. The purpose of Hanukkah is to actually sit down and learn. Masha Enkein on Purim, the purpose are the parties. The purpose of Purim are the parties. Perfect. The perfect Purim party. Thanks for sharing that with me. Anyway.
And because Purim is so short also, and because there's so much to do, that sometimes the meaning of Purim itself can be possibly misconstrued.
The busier people are, the less likely they are to focus on what's really important. Want to hear a story? Sure you do. I had a student who was getting married, and she calls me up, and I get a call, and I'm looking, and I see it's mamash, like just before a chuppah. And she calls up, and she's almost in tears. And she says, this is the most important day of my life. And someone's patching my dress, and someone's doing my makeup, and someone's doing my hair, and someone's doing that. And what am I supposed to be focusing on? I'm getting married. This is an absolutely amazing thing that people come to the most important days of their life, and because they're so busy with stuff, they often miss what's most important. So what is the most important thing at Purim?
So there are a lot of important things about
No,
Purim.
I'm going to interrupt you for a second. The book, of which there are not many in print yet, left, right? They've been selling like hotcakes. I've never actually bought a hotcake, so I don't really know how they sell. Nor have I ever found any place where they sell hotcakes.
They're all sold out. That's exactly the point.
Finally, I have an answer to the question that has troubled me for years. They sell like hotcakes. Why can't you buy hotcakes? Because they were all sold already. Unbelievable. Anyway, so what? So you're saying there's a message that you wanted to bring across that's different than what's out there. What is that?
Yeah, so I wanted to really attack the basic themes of Purim. It's specifically a smaller book to make all these themes accessible.
How many pages is this?
Wow.
Don't tell me.
174?
176. Unless you count this back page over here, that's 178. But anyway. Yeah, I don't know how they do it. Do you know why Gemaras start on Daf Beis? So there's two reasons. One is so that guys learning Chavetz Chaim will feel like they're covering ground. But there's another reason. I didn't know this. Is because the cover page is Daf Aleph. So there you go. There's a little trivia for you coming in. Anyway, I keep interrupting you. Yeah, so you wrote this book because...
So really because there are a lot of amazing svarim, but like I said, I wanted to just focus on a lot of the points, whether in terms of the Achdus that comes out of Purim, the message for us in Galus, like, Purim, for example, Hanukkah, we have a victory, and we get back to Beis HaMikdash.
Right.
And Pesach, we leave Mitzrayim. Purim, we kind of stay put. So, the Megillah ends, we're still there. So the Vilna Gaon, he explains how really it's a message for us today in Galus now. So try to explore that. I like to take themes that relate to us right now,
So it sounds like you're trying to... So the title, Purim Now and Forever, is the idea of trying to find the relevance in Purim for us today.
Right. So to go into the deep themes from different sources, but it's full of stories that are, inspirational. People that have inspiring stories.
So what is the message for Purim for us today? I don't want to give away the book, but...
To keep on trying, because it makes a difference, and that's what we're here to do. So, you have to sum it up. The efforts we put in, it may seem it's not building up towards anything. It may seem like...
You're saying because since Purim just ends without any conclusion, it's a holiday that celebrates the effort and the journey rather than the conclusion.
Right, and even though we remain in Galus today, but we still were succeeding, because that's the point of Galus, to still make the effort and to still try in our avodah. That's what we're trying to accomplish.
So how does one go into Purim in order to try to... Because as you pointed out, there's so much... Shalach Manas has turned into something absurd. The concept of drinking has been taken to, again, an absurd extreme. Moshe Shapiro once said that a person shouldn't really drink until they're 40, because the whole purpose of drinking is that what's inside comes out, and you really don't have anything to share until you're 40. So the way Moshe put it, and I added a caveat to that. I said, what's inside should really stay inside. Because I've had people at my Suda where what was inside came outside, and it didn't help anybody.
So the only mention of drinking in the book is what you said from Ramosha. It's a footnote that's otherwise we stay away from drinking, and because like I said, there's a lot of other themes that you have to prepare beforehand, kind of to the mindset, and that I think we're doing a good job about that.
Okay, so you're coming to Purim, and Purim night, you have to get to shul, you have to have the Megillah, then you come back. There's a din to have a Suda at night as well. If you're part of a yeshiva, you go to the yeshiva Masiba. Yeah, there might be a play, there might be dancing, there might be, excitement. You come back home, you have to get up and go to Megillah reading, then you have to come back and wait for your wife to go to Megillah reading, and then you start delivering the Shalach Monas, and then before you know it, it's time for the Suda. And so now, what is my focus?
Right, so that's the whole point, because really all these, obligations on Purim have to do with what happened in the days of Purim itself. For example, the Suda, corresponds to the fact that we ate by the Suda of Achashverosh.
So that's a tikkun for that.
So it's interesting because we would think to stay away from this.
Right.
On Yom Kippur, we don't wear jewelry and gold.
Right.
We stay away from the Cheda Egel.
Right.
So it's very interesting that on Purim we specifically attack and make reference to all of our many averos at the time of Purim. The Shalach Manas is for the Mishloach that Achashverosh sent out against us. A lot of different things that we would want to stay away from.
Right.
So as we're going through our day and celebrating it in a way that keeps making reference to all of these many bad things we did,
we're embracing the bad things we did.
We're embracing it, but I wouldn't want to bring it back up. Maybe we'll try to celebrate around it.
Right. So that's an excellent point. So on Yom Kippur, we stay away from any reference to the Egel and the bad thing that we did that caused this problem. Whereas here, we're doing things in order to embrace what we did wrong on Purim.
So we discuss in the book that it shows how much Hashem loves us, and He realizes how in Golus we're weaker than in our prime, and He came and He accepted us no matter what we're because of all of our efforts, and He forgave us so clearly that it's all wiped out. We can make reference to these things every single year, and know that Hashem loves us. That's why in Purim we accepted the Torah again. This time from Ava. Not only from Yira like it was by Kabbalas Torah at Har Sinai.
It's a higher level of forgiveness than we get on Yom Kippur.
Right, from the Shlosses.
Yom Kippurim.
Right. Well, we agreed our Achdus on Purim that we had by Kabbalas Torah. We see that exactly as we go through the day, there's so many things that we could have in mind while we're going about celebrating with our family, with our friends, just to bring out this Avas Hashem and the beauty in what we're all about.
So it's counterintuitive because here Purim is this day which is supposed to be so holy, and it's turned into a circus. I mean, mamish a circus. Yeah, the costumes have become bizarre. The drinking has become bizarre. The shalach manos has become bizarre. Everything has been taken to a ridiculous extreme, and yet it's a day that has greater potential than Yom Kippur for us to be able to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and make up for our mistakes. So, I mean, how is it possible? Noach Weinberg used to say, it's hard to remain sane in an insane world. So how is a person supposed to figure out how to find these themes when nobody around you has any idea what's going on?
Right. So in terms of the drinking, I grew up out of town, so I wasn't exposed to this until I got older. I grew up in Queens. First time I visited my friend's yeshiva on Purim night, I came in, and all of a sudden, Avi, I love you, and he started to cry, and I don't really know, but it happens to be that Chassam Sofer explains that the drunkenness on Purim is a reference to the Gemara that says that from all of our Averos during Golus will be acquitted because we have a defense that in Golus we're like drunk people. We don't have a seichel, and we're not as strong as we used to be. Mordechai, he goes out and says he did a tzaka gedola in the street. He didn't say anything, he didn't say tefillah, because he gave like a drunken cry. Because we're weaker people. So I shouldn't give legitimacy to what happens. Everyone has their way, but the concept of the drinking on Purim, saying this carefully, is it makes reference to our state now and how we still keep on trying.
Rabbi Shapiro once quoted the Ramah, which says you're supposed to drink a revius, and since this is a din d'Rabbanan, that would be 3.3 ounces, and then take a nap. And the idea is that when you're sleeping, ad lo yada, you don't know what's going on when you're asleep. And that's where the Gemara says, Yeshnon am echad, there's one nation that's asleep. So that somehow the avoda of Purim, like you say, is I'm drunk, I'm sleeping, it's the antithesis of avodas Hashem. Yom Kippur, you're in shul the whole time. You're supposed to try to stand for as long as you can. You're not eating, you're not drinking, you're davening the whole day. And Purim, we're sleeping, we're drinking, we're eating, we're running around with shalach manas, we're putting on funny costumes. And that has a higher level of Kedusha. That's a question, by the way. I wasn't just looking for acknowledgement. I mean, I'm...
So that is that very much describes the theme of Purim because it kind of mirrors how we are today.
So what am I supposed to do to prepare for Purim in order to maximize the spiritual potential of the day?
We have to do things that bring on the Achdus, I think. We were zoch also to be free. Many say because of the Achdus that we had. Esther, for example, she was fasting herself, but she didn't want to make a move until the Jews finished their time of tshuva. Because she said, we have to be a Klal Yisrael before I can go and defend these people.
Wow. So, do you have a recipe for creating Achdus today between people, Jewish people? In many ways, I don't know if I could say we're more divided than we've ever been, but certainly there's a fracturalization. I think I just made up that word. Anyway, it's gefractured, to use the correct Yiddish term. And, somebody told Rabbi Leib Shteyman that we're making a cheder from only the best boys, from the best families. And he said, I don't know, when I was a kid, we all went to cheder together and it worked fine, So now you need, yeshiva for this type and that kind of type and this kind of family and that kind of kid and this kind of thing. And everything is broken apart. So how are we supposed to? You go into a Purim and create something like Achdus?
Right. Whenever you're talking about the main issues of our days, it's very scary to say that you have a hold. But I know what I try to focus on a lot is that we know in Shemona Esrei all of the brachos are in plural, lashon rabim, and the bracha that you think not to do that for is by slach lanu when we're talking about our own sins. Mm-hmm. I would think it wouldn't be appropriate to mention other people, but right. I think maybe that we have to switch how we look at our sins and other people's sins. A lot of times for our own sins, we have answers and tirutzim, and I have brushing it off. And if I really do a cheshbon nefesh during my slach lanu, by the time I'm done, I'm good. But it's for the other guy that I hold him up, I hold him accountable. I think the point is to kind of switch it and kind of realize that other people look at them in a positive way, understand that they might be coming from somewhere, especially when I know less about their scenarios than myself personally. It's a beginning just to try to change perspective, to know that if someone's really a family member, I would try to vouch for them more.
The famous story with the Brisker Rav, right, where somebody was telling him about the secular or the Zionists, they're doing this, they're doing that, and he says, Yonah Hanavi is on a boat filled with Ovdei Avodah Zarah, idol worshippers. And there's a storm, and it looks like the boat is going to sink, and Yonah says, this is only because of me. Only because of me. Said the Brisker Rav, when you see things are happening in society, the only place to look is at ourselves. But also got looking at everybody else, and that's much easier. Since Rabbi Dr. Twersky wrote a book with a parish on Peanuts cartoons, I feel like I can quote from one, where Linus says to Lucy, everyone was put into this world to make people happy. And she thinks about it and she goes, there's a lot of people out there not doing their job. So it's obviously much easier to look at somebody else. But you're telling me that slach lanu is in the plural, which means that we're looking at everybody's sins, not just our own.
We switch our perspectives of our own sins for our own personal avodah, and also have a look at other people. In a way, when the strength we get for greater avodas Hashem, for greater avas Yisrael, that is, I think is on Purim. We kind of, we put on costumes, kind of help separate the barriers. As you explained once, I believe that we share each other's food.
I actually heard this from Lef. I have to give credit where credit is due. Right? As a friend of mine used to say, Kol mi she'omer davar b'shem omro mevi geula l'olam. Yeah. Who said that? Anyway, we'll put that aside for a moment. But it's the kind of thing that everybody always quotes. Yeah. But the idea is that I send you what I like, and you send me what you like. I always said this should be a motivation to develop much classier friends, because you want to stay away from the loose nuts and and bumper people. used to have a fellow who used to send me sliced roast beef, for Shalach Manas. I worked hard to maintain that relationship over the years. That's what we're looking for. That's what we're trying to say. But I don't know. Sometimes you send out your Shalach Manas to people, and it makes the rounds, and eventually you get back your own Shalach Manas, And I'm even happier because I liked mine better than everybody else's. So what's the idea? The idea is I want you to enjoy what I like, and I want to try to enjoy what you like. And that's why, I give a shout out to my good friend Benji Reisman, whose father, of course, is a big Rav, and his grandfather was the founder of Reisman's Bakeries. And one year I spoke about the fact that there's no prune hamantaschen in Eretz Yisrael, and what a terrible burden it has been for me to bear. It was one of the reasons I really considered moving from Eretz Yisrael back to America. And so he sent me a big box of prune hamantaschen. Lasted a long time. I'm not asking for anything out there. I'm just making an observation. But my gosh, you said prune hamantaschen, so Israelis may or may not enjoy that. They might like the ones that are filled with chocolate or dirt, which they also make. They call it poppy seed, but why in the world would anyone ever fill a pastry with poppy seeds? The idea to me is so it's called mon and hamon and shkayich.
And they want to see how strong your avas is.
I'm glad his name wasn't Yichi Face, because I would hate to think what they're going to send me. But anyway. But the idea is that everyone has their own taste. Everyone has their own taste. As they say in Eretz Yisrael, tam v'reach. When it comes to smell and taste, and vatkech, and to argue about what's right and what's wrong. Everybody has their idea of what looks good, what they can appreciate. That's why there's an entire market in Eretz Yisrael, I don't know, in America, for these pictures that are made up of little plastic bushes and things that are stuck together on a piece of velvet, and they put a piece of glass on top of it, and people hang these in their houses, and it's really just the Jewish version of a satin pillow with frills on it that says Philadelphia is a fun city. So it's just maybe one step up, or those little glass figurine of the honeymooners. Anyway, I digress. But so you're saying that
Purim helps break down the barriers.
How do you do that? So how do you? I always had this taiva. I never did it, but I've always thought about it, of making Shalach Manas geared towards the person I'm sending it to. I never did it, and
that might not go with the theme of your costume.
It doesn't go at all. It doesn't go with the theme of the costumes. This is very important. I don't know about it for everybody else, but in my house we have to have a theme. It has to be a color, or it has to be an idea. Last year we had a new Shalayim. Shushan Purim came out on Friday for the 5th time in a row. And so my kids did Freaky Friday, and we all dressed up like each other. And what can I tell you? I feel so jealous of the person who dressed up like me. Because, as I mentioned, I like getting my own Shalach Manas bag. There's this New Yorker cartoon where you see people playing charades. And the caption is, this guy stood up and goes, I'm a white American male. I would rather be in bed than playing stupid parlor games. Who am I? So I remember one time I went to Rav Moshe on Purim, and my friend Rabbi Nissel ratted on me to Rav Moshe, and he says, Dovid doesn't enjoy Purim. He's not caught up in the action of the day, the happiness of the day. So Rav Moshe says, what can you do? He really understands it. That Purim in itself is a very serious day, and they always say there's a very fine line between comedy and tragedy. Yeah, and the 2,000-year-old man, Carl Reiner, asked Mel Brooks, did you ever have any comedians? He goes, one time a tiger walks into the cave, and this guy Murray grabs him by the tail and goes, yaha, yaha, and the tiger turned around and ate him. He says, that sounds like tragedy. He says, what's tragedy? Tragedy is if I cut my finger. What's comedy? If you fall into an open manhole and die. So there's a very fine line between comedy and tragedy and the absurdity that goes with it. So on Purim, if you stop to think about it, I mean, the implications of the day and everything that went into it was dramatic. I mean, Rabbi Moshe used to point out that we were sold. The Gemara says there was never anyone who sold or bought like Haman and Achashverosh when Achashverosh sold the Jewish people to Haman. And a decree came out against us, and the decree was signed with the royal seal, and that can never be broken. So Moshe pointed out that gezerah against the Jewish people exists till this day. We're still hanging by a thread. So there is definitely a seriousness to it.
So all the themes and the power that's available on Purim can free us from that in a way. If we understood the power that we have with that, we'd break it.
That even if we're drunk and even if we're sleeping and even if we're desperate, so
there's so much thing. If we gain a power of Achdus on Purim, if we gain back a power of the realized efforts our avoda accomplishes, we'd be free. Like Chavetz Chaim says, we have to work on our Avas Yisrael specifically. So in a way, that could be why maybe it's so hard to focus on that on Purim.
That's why Baruch Hashem, this book is still available. It's not selling like hotcakes. It is selling like Teddy Ruxpin before the first holiday when it was being sold. No one has any idea what I'm talking about, but it doesn't make a difference because we have established I'm basically here to entertain myself. And I want to thank Rabbi Lieberman for taking out time, being on our show. Where would you find this? How if I wanted to get a copy of it? I mean, I have a copy. It's actually inscribed. Yeah.
Right. So this actually, it's in all bookstores where Feldheim books are sold. You can get it from the Feldheim website, the Amazon. For me personally, it's accessible.
All right, and that's it for this week. If you'd like to find out more about the show, you can go to RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can add comments, see my upcoming event schedule, contact me directly. If you want to be part of our live ongoing shiurim, and I can tell you, my friends, they are a lot of fun. We have one on Sunday and one on Monday in Mesilas Yesharim. We have Daf Yomi every single day except for Shabbos, and you can still join. They're really a lot of fun. I just gave my last Mesilas Yesharim shiur that I gave, and we got to talk about so much fun stuff. I couldn't even believe it. I'm usually laser focused and I never drift off topic. And I was just surprised how I was just brought into so many different topics because, sometimes anyway, but so if you're interested in joining that, if you want to sponsor an episode, ROlofsky.com/sponsor. If you want to find out about making your own podcast and you want to go to jewishpodcasts.org, you have that opportunity. And what can I tell you? I hope we've added to your simcha a little bit. And I hope you get this book, Sefer, to be able to help you keep that focus. And that's it for this week. I'm Dovid Orlofsky.
Avi Lieberman.
And this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Woo, good.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode. And we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah, anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.